another episode of...
I love when he blushes. You notice he blushes?
He might be having a heart attack.
I could be having a heart attack.
I know.
Ladies and gentlemen, another episode of Stand-Up Memories. I am Peter Bales. This is Jackie Martling, and you introduce our special guest.
This lovely woman who is just as alluring as she was a week ago. Karavas. Big friend from the Friars Club. We didn't work in the clubs together. I never worked the clubs, but Peter knows it from the clubs.
I have worked
We
with
go
Carrie.
way back to the comic strip in 1979.
Yep.
You guys met 1990.
Got to be around 1990 when you came back to Long Island from LA, hit the clubs, and the rest is history.
I can't stand that 1990 is 30 years ago. Can you accept that? I cannot, not to sound like the old farts we are, but I cannot wrap my brain
Next
around it.
year's my high school reunion, so they go, do you want to go? I go, yeah, I'll go. I go something with 30 years. I said, I'd love to see everybody after 30 years. She goes, it's 40. I go, what? 40? I'm not going.
Were you in the...
My 50th high school reunion was so long ago.
Listen,
Listen.
Jeez. Were you voted anything in your high school yearbook most likely to kill a booker? What most likely to kill somebody? Did you get the... were you popular in high
I
school?
was not popular, because my school had it was like Led Zeppelin, and it was a rock and roll school, right?
Yeah. Where was this?
Plain Edge in
Plain Edge.
Massapequa.
Okay.
So I was a disco queen. There was like a handful of disco people. So remember the boom
different
boxes?
Different
Right,
clicks.
the boom boxes, and they would come down and you hear, hey, mama said the way you move. I'd be like, spring affair, and they'd be like, turn that disco shit off. So I didn't really click with them because I always thought they were dirtbags.
And this is, you're in high school in graduating.
80.
So that's at the height of disco sucks, rock and roll
it was like
sucks.
the end of the 70s. I was going to clubs. So the drinking age was 18
Yes.
and then I got grandfathered in because when I turned 19, it went to 21, and they're like, well, you've already been drinking a year, so you were grandfathered in. So
It didn't actually work like that, did it?
yes, it did.
Because I turned 18 and drank, I was alky, drunk, and then went to Michigan State. And I couldn't drink till I was 21, and it was like, it was
What?
unbelievable.
No, we're not the same age.
Huh?
No, but
No, I'm talking about when I turned 18 in New
Yeah, it
York.
was
I started
legal. It
drinking. I
was
drank
legal.
and drank, and then went to college and had to wait 3 years.
Wait a minute, college in Michigan, the
was
drinking-
21.
Oh, okay. So no, in New York, if you lived in New York and you drank at 18, I was 19. They said, "Oh, we're going to push it to 21," and they did, but they let us drink.
That's
women-
funny. I never knew that.
Girls like you with makeup could drink at like 13 walking into the...
I was at Uncle Sam's.
If you could get the
Grand
door
opening.
open. If you could get the
Remember
door
Uncle
open.
Sam's?
I remember Uncle Sam's.
Disco.
Disco.
But
I don't know if I ever even went in there.
But don't imply to the audience that when you got to Michigan State, you stopped drinking.
No, it was so ridiculous that we went out to celebrate when I turned 21. To talk about deja vu, God, that was an eternity. And I'm so little. There was no way I was getting away with anything. There was no way I'm going to have fake proof.
Yeah,
Even
no.
in high school.
Right.
So I just waited.
I
it
had
out.
fake proof. Because back then you didn't have a picture on your license. Look at these young people looking at us like, yeah. That was like a piece of
right.
paper.
A little piece
it was
of-
a piece of paper, and sometimes we would erase the last number and
was
change
so
it
easy.
with a pencil, and they're like, okay, get it. They didn't even care.
So you were a
draft. We had draft cards.
A
We had draft
disco
cards.
queen. I have an old leisure suit, if that impresses you. I do. Remember those?
No.
No, I had a ponytail.
Thank God.
I'll tell you. So in the 90s, being a comedian in
I don't even know if you're kidding. I bet you did have a leisure suit.
a leisure
A lesion.
suit.
Men in floors of menopause.
I had a members only jacket, a leisure
You still
suit.
have it.
I do.
You freak.
I love it. All
You
right?
come to the clubs. I'm like, Peter, take that off. Untuck your shirt. Look like you're
Last
part
month,
of the group here.
Carrie got on me because I had bell bottoms on. I mean, I didn't think it was a big deal. But listen.
I went through the entire 70s with a ponytail, from beginning to end, ponytail. First year of comedy, I had a ponytail.
I remember.
And then, one day I'm like, they decide before you even get to the microphone whether or not they like you. And you lost half the audience. They see the ponytail. It's just like
you freak.
You freak.
But you became a comedian. You came of age as a comedian in the 90s. How are the 90s different for comedy than now?
Okay, the comedy scene was every night of the week. There was another club, another bar. People went out. People spent money. Everybody drank and drove.
And it was still new.
People had fun. People wanted to meet people in real time instead of over their phone and over some swipe and left crap. I mean, in order to see a man's penis, you had to meet him first. There was no texting penis.
You know what's crazy is talking like this, we sound like antiques. Like meeting people in person, picking somebody up at a bar.
I wish I would have gotten a couple of pics beforehand. That would have been like, well, I'm not wasting any more time on this.
However, it's okay to have stand-up memories. That's what this show is about.
Oh.
But I know, and you talk about in your act, how people today drive you crazy. Okay?
Back then, it was a violent... So back then, if you remember back in the day when you were working every night of the week.
Every night.
The crowds were different. The crowds would yell at you. It was a lot of heckling going on back then. There is no heckling now. Nobody speaks to you. People don't want to talk to you. Back then, you had guys like Mulrooney that would destroy a crowd. You had guys
and they would invite it.
Yes. Like, what was his name? Oh my God. He was the greatest. He was a black comic in L.A. Harris?
Ralph Harris?
Ralph Harris would kill the crowd, and it was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So you had top guys that did this, and then like crowds loved it. They were like,
But it wasn't vicious. It was.
But you made fun of people, and they were okay with it. Now, God, they get upset. You know, you got to give back the money. You got to give back the money.
You know who was terrific at that? Joe Piscopo was terrific at that.
Oh, I never saw him
at the Improv. He was a great host, Joe Piscopo.
I can still see Belzer saying, "That's a nice tie, guy. You couldn't guess your weight, huh?" That still resonates in my head.
Belzer originated a lot of the lines that today you cringe and go, that's stock. You know, run around the room and make it sound like a crowd. Belzer
That was brilliant. That's a brilliant line.
He's the one who originated.
Right.
David Letterman said that in his opening shot on Carson. I couldn't believe it. He said, did a joke and it didn't get a big laugh. He said, "You want to run around and make it sound like everybody's there?" I couldn't believe it.
Like
but the audience doesn't know it's stock. The audience doesn't know it's stock, but comedians do. I'm sorry, go ahead.
But so sometimes they drank a lot back then. You would get, remember the drinks you would get to the table? They'd be like, here, they'd bring you a fish bowl, and you had 2 straws, and for $15 you had a friggin' Rascals would have a drink this big, and you're like, wow, you're gonna get wasted. You're gonna yell, someone's throwing up in the club. So, and that's how you guys, met girls. But so
I am absolutely getting nostalgic listening to this. I'm not even making it up.
Right, and then you would fight back, and sometimes it would go sour, and there would be somebody jumping on stage to try to beat the shit out of Jeff Zabrowski.
It would turn
because Jeff was vicious.
Jeff Zabrowski probably brought that on.
Yes, another time
The only thing amazing about somebody coming on stage and attacking Jeff Zabrowski is it wasn't one of the other comedians.
It wasn't one of the other comedians, that's correct. Now,
wait.
Go ahead. What happened to you?
So one night I'm at Fast Eddie's, I'm hosting the show, and Otto and George are closing the show, right? The puppet act. He's an X-rated puppet act, if you don't know Otto and George.
Greatest.
Look him up. He was one of the greatest.
Genius.
He started when he was 5 years old, however old he was, going to Staten Island back and forth, making $200 a day back then.
Busking.
Now this puppet, you felt like it was real. I mean, this thing was, so he'd be talking, and the puppet would be like, "Where the fuck are you going?" Like, he was a vicious, he would see everything in the room, Otto. He was so brilliant. And then the puppet was such a nasty little demonic, crappy thing. And then he was like off stage, he'd be like, "Hi, Carie, how are you?"
Yeah.
Like, two different people. He's got the puppet going, and all of a sudden, I'm back there, and I go, uh-oh, we're gonna have an issue. I get up. This girl goes to lunge at him, and I dove in, and I pushed her back, and it was a brawl, and the boyfriend got up, and Otto was like, he got off stage, the show was over. You know,
You see,
it was like,
I was there, but I saw most of it from under a table. Carie dove in.
I dive in.
Really?
I dove in one time to save George Gallo.
Oh, really?
So we're at Concom
George
Comedy
Gallo
Club.
that
These
used to write
fights
for
at
the
comedy
Daily
clubs
News.
are
That guy?
rare. I swear, they're rare. But Carie brings this kind of thing.
I wasn't afraid. I was a tough guy. So one night, the crowd is making fun of this one lady with her son and all her kids. She's got like 19 kids. So every comic would go up and bash her. So Gallo goes up and he says something, but nothing major. And the kid stands up and goes, "Shut the fuck up!" And Gallo's like, I'm
He was like the straw that broke the camel's back.
He was the straw that broke. So I immediately started running, and Gallo was filming the set. So we have this on film. The guy gets up and flips Gallo to the ground, and I jumped up and I pushed the guy off of him. I'm like, where are all the comedians? And then finally, after 10 minutes of the brawl on the stage, everybody showed up.
I gotta ask you, does this tape exist?
Yes, it does.
It does.
Oh, we're gonna play it on here?
Well, I have to talk to George Gallo to see if he actually still has. I'm pretty sure he
I've
still
heard about
has
this, and the video is famous for the camera was.
and now everyone's fighting on stage, and Gallo's on the floor, and you see him, and he was one of the funniest improv comics. He was like what's his name? He was so crazy, and he's like, hey, help, and he's on the floor, but he's doing all this and we're watching the tape. I go, look at Gallo, and he's on the floor making jokes,
trying to keep going,
getting our asses kicked, and he's like, yeah, help.
Have you ever
so
had women get mad at you? Do other women get mad at you, or sometimes challenge you, or is it always the guys?
I always got the women on my side.
Okay, you do. That's true.
I always got the women on my side because they were my they were my
Yeah, but I mean, you actually jump into these fights. That's an interesting.
Well, I did. I don't know anymore. I'll break a hip now. Get the hell out of here. You're on your own if you want to piss somebody. Well, nowadays everybody's got a gun. I'm not jumping in for you.
That's right. That's right. It's no fun breaking a hip, right, Jackie?
Oh wow.
I might break a hip just answering your question.
Coughing.
Crazy.
Now,
did you ever do Otto and George's talk show?
No, but I did his roast. I put it together for him.
yeah, but he wasn't in. What was going on? Otto and George, legendary ventriloquist, who was the comedian's comedian.
You really
Not
should
to
Google.
get confused with Vince Daytona and George.
Vince Daytona and George.
It was PG and rated X.
Right. But Otto was weird at that roast, wasn't he?
He had to pee.
Uh-huh.
So he was very uncomfortable, and when he walked in, he thought it was a gig. I think you
Oh,
might have said at that roast, Otto, don't worry, you're still getting the $75.
Because it was a surprise. It was
It was a great
He
roast.
was truly, truly amazing.
You know, when he was really struggling, because he was really dealing with a heavy drug thing, but still going out and killing, I really wanted to do a documentary on him because I thought doing a documentary on him might get him famous or at least more whatever, and it might save his life because he's backstage and he's a mess and he's just a depressed, crazy drug addict, and then going through the curtain and destroying. And I'm thinking the A-B of that would be the greatest documentary in the world. And I finally talked to him because he finally got to the point where I saw him at the brokerage. He said, "What happened in the documentary?" I'm like, "Well, I've been chasing you around." He said, "No, I really want to do it." So I was actually supposed to meet him in the city for lunch. And that was the day that he went on Opie and Anthony. And I don't know whether he left George the puppet in the suitcase in the car or didn't have it with him. And for 45 minutes, Opie and Anthony couldn't stop making fun of him because he couldn't do what he does without the puppet. And he got so pissed off that he just went home and blew off our lunch. So I was like, because he was so undependable.
But he started getting recognition as he, people started see other comics that make it. Will say, "Oh my God, this guy was my idol," and they're bringing, like Don Gavin, who is one of my favorite comedians in the world.
Great comedian from Boston.
Oh my God. Don Gavin, I used to work, every time I did Vegas, Gavin was the headliner, and he was drinking Black Russians. By the third show, he would do his act and forget the punchline. He wouldn't finish the joke. And then he's like, "They sucked." I'm like, "Gavin, you didn't finish any of your punchlines."
Now, is this the Tropicana you're working?
One night, I'm downstairs gambling on a slot machine, and I know I have 15 minutes left because Gavin's up, and he's closing, and he gets off, and then, whatever at this time. So 10 minutes in, I go, let me go up. I go up, and the whole showroom's coming out, and I'm like, I'm the MC. I'm supposed to close out the show. I go, where you got? He goes, the show's over. Because Gavin got wasted. He bit his tongue. He was bleeding on stage. So he gets off, and I'm like, so the sound guy, thank God he liked me. He goes, what happened? I go, I had a bad stomach ache. I was in the bed. I had to make something up. I was the fastest. You couldn't get me. I was like, my stomach. I was in the bathroom. I got another 10 minutes. He goes, well, Gavin jumped. I go, oh. He goes, don't worry. He goes, I covered you from the booth.
Oh, wow.
That you got to love that.
That's an
you got to love that.
I gave Otto a ride home from Rascals, and we're on the George.
How many stops did you make?
Well, actually, we got to the George Washington Bridge, and he said, I said, where should I drop you? Where do you live? And he goes, just drop me under the George Washington Bridge.
Wow.
So sad.
And
sad.
I said, no, let's go to where you live. No. And
right.
He just wanted to.
One night I picked him up. I'm driving, and he goes, we're just going to make a quick stop, okay, Carie? I go, okay, Otto, no problem. Where do you want to stop? Fort, what's that road in the Harlem? Not Harlem. Oh my God, Jerome Avenue. In the
Bronx.
We pull up to this shady building. He goes, I'll just be right out, Carie. I go, you're not going to leave me here alone, are you? I go, seriously? Otto, how long? He goes, I'll be right out, Carie. Carie leaves. I'm like, I'm going to get killed. This guy, I'm going to kill him.
Gilbert Gottfried, God rest his soul, him and
well,
Frank.
You didn't say God rest his soul for Otto. He died too.
Well, God rest his soul too.
Okay, thanks.
They're going like flies. I'm not sure Bales is going to make it through this. But
that's mean.
So Gilbert and Frank interviewed everybody. Gilbert's podcast is, if not one of the best showbiz things. And I was up at Live Nation talking to Ron Delsner, who's a booking agent who's booked everything for the last 50 years. And we start talking, and he's talking about how he used to book Lenny Bruce a million years ago. And he said, and I drive me, he said, I got to stop and say hello to my cousin. Or I got to stop and the bell went off in his head that he was stopping so Lenny could go in and cop heroin. And I said, you got to be on Gilbert's podcast. And he went on Gilbert's podcast because that's the whole show business from the other end. That's a guy, a rock and roll booker booking a comedian. And it was classic, just so different. But my God, I remember dropping Bob Woods off at a park bench.
See, people are
under nice bench.
People are under the impression that it's fun to hang out with comedians. It's really not.
It can be.
It can be, but comedians who are the same on stage that they are off, that's a problem. You need to settle down somewhat when you're off stage.
Yeah, Rich Walker. No, I'm just kidding.
Rich Walker is a comedy.
Yeah. Whereas some of us have to pick it up a little bit.
That's right,
Peter.
No, but what I'm saying to you is, so people will say to me all the time, I want to can you hang out with us? And I'm like, you wouldn't want to hang out with me during the day. There's nothing funny coming out of my mouth during the day.
Right.
The only thing I'm doing is bitching, moaning, and complaining all day. So you don't want to hang out with this person. But they don't realize, like, most comedians are depressed. Most comedians have mental issues.
But even without
on the spectrum.
Even if you're just normal, you're just normal. It's got nothing to do with that crazy person. So I remember when I first started doing comedy, and I had a girlfriend, and we go out to a dinner party, and I'd always be, I'd drink and get crazy at the dinner party, which is the same as going on stage.
Right.
And I remember one night we were at this dinner party with a few friends, and we're laughing it up, and this guy's wife said to my girlfriend, boy, that must be so great being Jackie's girlfriend. And she said, take him for a week. I can still hear her saying, Take him for because they get the
Right.
this
Ask my
side.
husband how much fun I am.
This side.
Ask my husband.
I will. I will. Hey,
On the next show,
that's the perfect lead-in.
she knows what she's doing.
Next week.
I'm a
This
pro.
has been She is a pro. Carie Karavas.
I'm a pro.
And next week we're going to be bringing on the show her husband Sam.
And maybe the tape of the brawl.
The brawl.
Yeah, maybe the tape of the brawl if I can get
to
Gallo.
I didn't mean to interrupt his introduction.
We're going to bring Sam out here, and he's going to explain how he survives living with Carie Karavas when she's off stage and being a regular human being.
Regular.
Yeah, let's not exaggerate here.
So thank you, Carie. You've been a terrific guest.
And when are we having your girlfriend?
My girlfriend or my wife?
Your wife?
That's awkward.
Yeah.
No, it's
All
not.
right.
How do I? Who can keep track?
We want the girlfriend, and then the following week you'll bring your wife.
Oh, my goodness. What's the Italian word for the girl?
Gumara.
I can't even say it.
I can't believe when I finally saw how that's spelled. It's not spelled anything like it sounds, right?
No.
So next week on Stand-Up Memories, bring your Gumara.
Peter, come on. You can't go to paid
Gumara.
escort a Gumara.
And we're going to have Carie Karavas and her husband Sam and have more fun. So thank you, Jackie Martling. Thank you, Carie Karavas.
Thank
This has
you.
been Stand-Up Memories, right?
Thank you, Muppets.
Tell your friends. Tell your
Cheers.
enemies. That was a pretty good episode.
A new episode every Wednesday with me, Peter Bales, Jackie the Joke Man Martling, comedians, interesting people. Leave a comment. We'll get. What am I saying?
I don't know.
We're gonna get back to you. We will respond to your comment.
StandUpMemories.com. If you go there, it shows all the different
All
platforms.
Spotify. We're on everything.
Every Wednesday.
Stand Up Memories.
Every Wednesday.
A new episode.